I'm here this morning with Trevor Loudon from New Zealand. And you have out a fabulous documentary called The Enemies Within. Of course, you know the name of it, but for the audience. And we are here at the capital of Texas, here in Austin, where you're going to be doing a presentation to some representatives and senators and their staffers today about care. What was the initial thing that, you're from New Zealand, what perked your interest? How did you get involved in researching America to the point that you've done?
Well, look, it started in New Zealand. You know, my specialty is researching the radical left, extremist groups, terrorist groups, etc. So I was doing that in my country, but it became very apparent that the main target was America. So from the early 2000s, I really started investigating the American radical scene. And when I was doing that, I discovered the ties between a young Barack Obama and the Hawaiian communist leader, Frank Marshall Davis. I did a lot of research into Obama, published it a lot online, and started getting invited to conferences in the United States. I exposed Van Jones, Obama's communist green job czar, and Glenn Beck used that information to get him kicked out of the White House. So I've been looking at the underside of American politics for some time. But the real reason was two reasons. One, you know, I love the American Constitution, what it stands for. But also, you know, my country's survival depends on America. You know, if America goes down, so do we. We have the Chinese knocking on our doorstep. We have an Islamic problem as well. I come from a country that was saved by America in World War II. You know, from invasion by the Japanese, by the massive sacrifice of your fathers and uncles and grandfathers at Guadalcanal, Coral Sea, Midway, you know, those big battles. So, in a way it's selfish, you know, for New Zealand to prosper and be free, for any Western country to be free, America has to get rid of its internal enemies, the Marxists and jihadis who have infiltrated the highest reaches of the US government and are trying to bring this country down. Because if that doesn't happen, America is doomed, and then so is everywhere else.
Yeah. You've been doing this research for quite a while, and you've uncovered a lot of information. As you've gone around the country sharing this, what has the reaction been of the typical American?
Yeah, shock. You know, most Americans, even most informed conservatives, understand that there are people in the government who are not very clever or not very, you know, don't really share American values, but they do not understand the absolute depth of penetration that has occurred through the Muslim Brotherhood, through the neo-communist groups, and are working together. We say there's 100 members of your House of Representatives, including Lloyd Doggett from Austin, Mark Vasey from Dallas, Sheila Jackson-Lee from Houston, and Joaquin Castro from San Antonio. There's at least 100 members of your House and 20 members of your Senate, I'm talking US Senate, who are so enmeshed in neo-communism, radical Islam, Muslim Brotherhood fronts, or all three, that they couldn't pass an FBI background check to drive a school bus.
Wow.
Or sell you stamps at the post office.
Wow.
But they're serving on the Intelligence Committee, the Armed Services Committee, the Homeland Security Committee. They're trashing your country every day. They're betraying your troops in the field. They're working for the enemy, and they can do it because there's no background checks in Congress whatsoever. None whatsoever.
Is that what you see as really lacking in one regard as to why they're in office, because there is no background check?
Yeah, I think that's a major flaw. You know, look, if you want to be a realtor in America, you have to have an FBI background check. If you want to drive a school bus, you have to have an FBI background check. If you want to have access to secrets, you want to work for the Department of Agriculture, you have to have a check. But if you want to serve on the Armed Services Committee of the House of Representatives, or the Homeland Security Committee, or the Intelligence Committee, as Andre Carson, the rep from Indiana, does, a man who has extensive ties to the Muslim Brotherhood, you need no checks whatsoever. Do you think America's enemies would not try and take advantage of that loophole in your system?
Yeah.
Do you think these foreign agents, these foreign enemies are so stupid and lazy they're going to ignore that massive hole in your national security?
And that's where I think Americans cannot believe, because we're so nice, that anyone would take advantage of us in that regard. So do you feel like any of the Americans are waking up?
Look, absolutely. And you're right. See, Americans live in the freest, richest, most prosperous country the world has ever known. They're very benevolent people, they're very trusting people, but they're also a little naive and a little complacent. You know, you haven't had tyranny on your shores for a long time. Not like Europe, not like most of the rest of the world that has felt the boot of tyranny right on their faces. So Americans have a lot of trouble understanding that you have enemies, or that you especially have enemies in your own government. That's a big jump for most people. But yes, I think more people are certainly waking up to that. 8 years of Obama and the radicals he put round him, the dirty deals he did, the Iran nuclear deal, his clear favoritism of the Muslim Brotherhood, his trashing of Christianity at every opportunity. Yes, a lot of people have gone from thinking, well, he's just a misguided liberal, to saying, well, yes, there's something wrong in Denmark. There's something wrong with this in the centre of our government, and that's why so many people who probably would have normally voted Democrat or wouldn't have voted at all got out and voted for Donald Trump, because they understand the swamp has to be drained. They may not understand how dirty and disgusting and foul that swamp is, but they know there's a problem and they want it fixed.
From your perspective, not being an American, what do you think are some of the key steps that potentially Americans should take to begin to turn this around?
Well, there's a lot of pressure on at the moment to Ted Cruz has just introduced legislation. I think it's also in the US House. And Trump could do this by executive order to pass what they call the Muslim Brotherhood Terrorist Designation Act. And that would mean that the Muslim Brotherhood operating in this country would be classified as a terrorist organization, as it is in Egypt and Russia and many other places. Now, the Muslim Brotherhood is a secretive Muslim organization promoting Sharia law and really aiming for total domination of Islam across the globe. They are the parent of Hamas, of Al-Qaeda, and indirectly ISIS. So they are terrorists. They support terrorists. In America, they're allowed to operate quite legally through front groups like the Council on American Islamic Relations, which is just setting up a branch here in Austin, the Muslim Students Association, ISNA, the Islamic Society of North America. They have numerous front groups that they use to interact with your congressman, your CIA, your FBI, your State Department, your Education Department, to spread their agenda through the United States. If that organization was designated a terrorist organization and you help that organization, you are committing a felony. That would deter a lot of these organizations from cooperating with this group. It would effectively shut down the Muslim Brotherhood in this country, and it would give the FBI grounds to go after these people and prosecute and jail them. You could use one law properly applied to shut down 50 years of Muslim Brotherhood infiltration into this country. And I think that is a very first step. But then you have to set up hearings like they did in the old days when the Democrats set up the House Un-American Activities Committee to go after not just the communists, but also the Nazis and the Klan. So that needs to be re-established to go after the obvious subversive elements that are operating in America, from the Muslim Brotherhood to their allies in the extreme left, the radical groups that you've seen demonstrating on the streets of America, smashing windows, turning over cars, assaulting people. Those people need to be gone after by the authorities and prosecuted and jailed.
You mentioned Egypt, Russia, and some other countries have established the Muslim Brotherhood as being a terrorist organization. Do they allow them in their countries, or how do they deal with them?
Well, in Egypt, they jail them and quite often execute them. They go very, very hard.
Take care of them real good.
They do. And see, Russia is playing a double game here. Russia does not allow them to operate on their territory, but they help them operate on our territory. So Russia doesn't want it in their backyard, but they weaponize. A lot of radical Islam is directed by Russia. They have weaponized Islam against the West, but they make sure it does not operate on their territory. So for Donald Trump to think he's going to work with Russia to defeat ISIS when Russia helped to set up ISIS is not going to be a successful maneuver. He's got to understand that Russia is playing a very deep double game in this situation. But yeah, these foreign countries, they understand the Muslim Brotherhood's a terrorist organization. They don't let them operate on their soil, but in some instances they will help them operate on American soil because they want to destabilize America, get revenge or whatever they want to do. They want to bring America down, and the Muslim Brotherhood is a great organ for doing that.
A lot of what's been going on as part of laying that groundwork is what is known as the interfaith movement.
Yeah, absolutely.
And which has brought a lot of confusion into the Christian churches and Jewish synagogues and all that are participating with them, not understanding. How do we begin to awaken more people to the reality of what's really going on?
Yeah, well, the interfaith movement, as you say, was set up probably what they say by Saul Alinsky, the Marxist radical from Chicago who mentored, who both Obama and Hillary Clinton drew inspiration from. But he had the idea of bringing the Christian churches together with Islam, whatever, to basically dilute the Christian churches and allow them to be taken over and to neutralize them against Islam. Now, I want to draw a little bit of a distinction here. See, we're told in this country that Islam is another faith, that it's just like Hinduism or Buddhism or Christianity. Well, look, there's only one major religion on the face of this earth that condones conversion by the sword, that says it's okay to force people to adopt your religion, and that is Islam. So therefore, that is a very political aspect of Islam. Now, and the other factor is, it's not Islam per se that many of us have a problem with. It is Sharia law.
Right.
Because Sharia law is a totalitarian political system, and it is a central part of Islam. So we're not talking about the religious aspect of Islam. If you want to seek spiritual salvation through Islam, that is your business. But if you want to impose Sharia law on us, that is very much our business. And Sharia law dictates all sorts of, it regulates every aspect of your life, marriage, finance, your toilet habits, everything, everything. It's totalitarian. And I'll make a couple of points. When I came to this country from New Zealand, I had to swear that I'd never been involved in any fascist or communist organisation, and this is last year, that sought to overthrow the US Constitution. Now, if you believe in Sharia law, by definition, you believe in overthrowing the United States Constitution. So therefore, in my view, you should not be allowed to come to this country. We talk about, the Syrian refugees coming here and the dangers of terrorism. Yes, that is a danger, but that's not the worst danger. The danger is large-scale Islamic immigration to this country where they can set up take over towns, set up areas where they can start to impose Sharia law, start to get a voting bloc going, and start to basically Islamize, impose Sharia law nationwide on this country. It's like allowing Nazis here or communists here to set up communism or Nazism on American soil. Now, everybody would agree that's not a good idea, but the same principle must apply to Sharia law. It's a totalitarian system, and any immigrant who comes here should be asked, do you believe in Sharia law? If so, sorry, you're out. You cannot come here. I think that's not as specifically anti-Islamic, that's anti-totalitarian. And just one little point, remember, Sharia has a lot of things in it, like, a man can have 4 wives, for example, and people say, we must tolerate these cultural differences. Utah, out west, wanted to be admitted to the Union, wanted to become part of America. The condition of that admittance was that they had to give up polygamy. They had to change a central tenet in their religious belief to become part of America. And nobody thought that was a bad thing. America had certain values based on Judeo-Christian ideas, a constitution, and polygamy stood squarely opposed to that. So you want to become part of us? Give that up. And they did it. The same condition should be applied on anyone who comes here who believes in Sharia law. You want to come to America, you have to forswear Sharia law. That's it, that's gone. You don't seek to apply it in this country. Because if you do, you're seeking to overthrow the US Constitution, and you should be regarded as an enemy of the United States.
One of the things I think that's happening, you were mentioning how much the Muslim Brotherhood and others have infiltrated our national government, but people aren't realizing this is happening on the local level. And as you mentioned, is it Michigan, where they now actually have a city that is being run by Islamic culture, and the majority of the people on the city council, and it is just one step away from moving totally into Sharia law.
Look, absolutely, you've got 2 up there. You've got Dearborn and you've got Hamtramck. Hamtramck has a Muslim majority on the city council. Dearborn has long been controlled by Islam. And they basically, they really run the places along Sharia law lines. They're little enclaves that really aren't part of America in a lot of ways. And they're seeking to expand that out, to expand their power right across the state. And look, for example, I was in Minnesota not long ago, and there's a little town there called Michelle Bachmann's old district. I just forgot the name of it, sorry.
Right.
But there's 60,000 people in the town, and 20,000 of them are Somali Muslim refugees.
Wow.
How long do you think that's going to remain a conservative district? Mm-hmm. What's that doing to the school boards? What's that doing to the hospitals? What's that doing to every facet of their society? So this is, Bobby Jindal had a great line, immigration without assimilation is invasion.
Exactly.
And that is what this is. This is not, these people are not coming here to become part of the American system. They're coming here to impose their system on America. It is their religious obligation to impose Sharia law worldwide. And I don't mean convince or persuade, I mean impose.
Yes.
And that's the key difference between Islam and the other major religions of the world.
I think one of the ironies is women do not understand the impact that will have on their lives personally. Would you like to touch on some of those key issues that women just seem to not want to believe?
Well, you've got these radical left-wing women who are supporting Islamic immigration, supporting increased influence of Islam in the United States. These are the women who have been marching for abortion and equal rights and, equal division of property in marriages and all of these things for 100 years and made huge sacrifices to achieve it. Now they are welcoming people into this country who want to make them second or third class citizens, who want to impose 7th century morality on their lives, to restrict them. You know, when you go to Saudi Arabia, a woman can't drive, she can't leave the house without male company. Some countries impose things like genital mutilation on women, horrendous practices, you know. And this is something they fought to get away from, and now they're welcoming it back in here.
And the women are not educated, and a lot of countries are not allowed to go to school and different things like that.
Forget voting. Forget all of that sort of stuff.
All the women's rights we've been fighting for all these years.
We'll
gone.
be totally down the drain. You know, you go into these Islamic zones of Europe, you know, you can see women there just subjugated, just totally slaves to their men. And that is part of the that's part of Sharia law. You know, if a woman makes a complaint of rape, for instance, under Sharia, she has to have several witnesses on her side. I think 4 women equal 1 man, you know, and under Sharia law. Why would any American woman support bringing people in who believe those things into this country?
Yeah.
You know, this, talk about suicidal.
Yes.
So it's not the terrorists that are the major problem. They're bad. But the real problem is the cultural and political and social changes that large-scale Islamic immigration will bring to this country. You know, and it only has to be 3 or 4% of the population when you will find they will impose their will on whole cities, whole areas, whole universities. And as it gets higher and higher, when they become bigger and bigger voting blocks, they will eventually impose their will across the entire country.
You mentioned a lot of key things like the universities. They've really moved into, moved into that area and are influenced the youth. And we just really don't realize all the little tentacles that have already gone out.
The huge amount of Saudi money that's gone into universities to set up endowments, set up chairs, set up departments of Islamic studies. You know, you go into a lot of universities in America and you wear a cross, you'll be persecuted. But you support Islam, you'll be one of the crowd, you'll be okay. And this goes right down to K-12 education, etc. You see textbooks which have chapter on chapter on Islam, and they'll have a little bit on Christianity, and all that will be was how the white Christian invaders conquered America and subjugated the native people. That's that's the Christian element of it, you know. So it's extensive, it's pervasive, and it's been done by Islam itself, but also the radical left in this country, the communists, the Marxists, the progressives are also helping this, because both sides see America as the main enemy. You know, just constitutional, middle class, patriotic America is the worst people on the planet. They're holding back progress for everybody, and they have to be taken out of the picture. So the Muslims and the communists are working together to achieve that. Maybe they'll fight each other over our corpses, but that's a little bit late for us.
Yeah,
you know, we have to understand there's a red-green alliance working outside America and inside America to bring this country down, and they are far more entrenched and far more powerful because they control a lot of the media and can keep their activities covert. They're far more powerful than most Americans have any inkling of.
Boy, there's so many topics we could touch on, the media and on and on and on.
This is a rabbit hole. It's just a...
Yeah, but I think your presentation is coming up in a few minutes, so I'm going to have to bring this to a close. I appreciate your time. You will be in San Angelo in a couple of days, and so we'll pick up where we're left off.
Absolutely,
and
we'll do it again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time, but more importantly, thank you for your work in this area and caring enough about America to help wake up Americans.
Well, thank you, Kat. It's a real pleasure to do the interview, and I hope your viewers find something of value in our conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Excellent.